So, have you or someone you know experienced family estrangement? It's not that uncommon. It's not really talked about a lot, unless you're in a therapy session, but sometimes it has a little bit of a, I don't know, like this taboo thing because it seems like, well, I'm going to talk about, this family estrangement that either I have or someone has from me to me, because it can seem like, well, what's wrong with you? But the thing is that most of us have gone through this in our lives. And especially when we reach midlife, have experienced it, whether it's from ourselves or a sibling or someone very close to us.
Mhm.
We've had this happen to us. And so today we're going to be talking about, why we go through this in life, what kind of the triggers are to it, and also some solutions about if you are experiencing this during this holiday season or someone you know, there might be some tips, tricks to help you navigate it. Okay. So if you're watching this right now and this feels really like relevant, we encourage you to please subscribe, like, hit comment. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Look, we're in midlife. We have seen some stuff, and not all of it is live, laugh, love. which
No, it's
lead,
not.
yeah, which leads us to a new segment that we are introducing called Laugh, Rage, Cry. What set you off this week? I'm going to let Denise take the lead on this one and share what has made her laugh, rage, or cry this week.
Oh my gosh. So, for those of you who don't know, I do have a daytime job and I work at a school. And so, we had a couple days off and I came back to work. First of all, I was completely confused about what day it was. I didn't know if I was coming or going. And then the next thing you know, I pick up this thing and everything spills out of the box. Everything. And I'm just like, what in the hell? Thankfully, everything that was in this box was wrapped in plastic, so it was safe. I didn't have to toss, a case of chicken nuggets out or something like that. But I was like, good Lord. And I just kept going that way. And then I almost dropped it. It was just like, what in the heck is happening here? And then I walked into a wall. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I need to go home. I need a nap. I need some coffee. I don't even know what I need, but I was just like, but it got to the point where I was finally like, I'm like, this is almost like a comedy show. And I bet it would be funny if somebody followed me around because I also like spin in circles. The one great thing about my job is that I can actually go from task to task, not finish anything, go back to it, and then finish. And it's kind of comical because I was like, oh, when they say multitask, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes not so much.
I guarantee you somebody on like closed circuit TV is watching you and sees it and is just like, what in the world?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, because we do have cameras, and so they're just like, how does she get this accomplished? Because she doesn't seem to have a plan.
At my old job, I actually went and recorded myself on the camera that recorded me picking up a box of potatoes when the bottom fell out and it just went everywhere. And I just stood there and I let out a laugh because it was the only thing you could do. Because
Yeah, yeah,
it was comical. It was like something, on like a show or,
yeah. I've done that with a box of oranges, and those little buggers just go rolling everywhere, and you're like, roll, just roll, because they're around, and then the next thing you know,
I know, chasing
I'm
oranges.
like on the floor on my hands and knees, like trying to pick
Yep.
up.
And you just like, put the circus music in the background.
Oh my gosh, absolutely, totally. Yeah. So overall, it wasn't a crazy week from that standpoint, but it was something.
Something. So my little laugh rage cry moment this week was it was embarrassing actually, but again, you got to move on. I was in the grocery store and let me set the stage for you that I'm wearing loose white linen pants and a flowy blouse, little linen blouse and some sandals. And I make my way into the store and I'm walking around when suddenly my fat ass, because it's gained so much weight, decides that these panties don't fit anymore.
Oh my God.
It's just rolled out down the front and down my backside as well. The only keeping these suckers on or on was the fact that I was wearing pants. Had I been wearing a skirt or a dress, I would have been doing the little shuffle with them around my ankles.
You'd have been like, I gotta get out of here.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm just like, again, white pants.
Oh,
So I'm like,
G with the all capital letters.
what if I? So I turned myself like into like the display of cans and the shopping cart. I stick my hands in my pockets and I'm like reaching through there, like trying to find my underwear. Like, where are like, okay, all right, I gotta go. Where did they go? So mind you, like they're tiny to begin with, and I was just asking a lot of them that day. So I find them and I roll it up the front and I'm like, okay, we're up. I put my hand on the cart and I take 3 steps forward and down they go.
Over that. Man down.
I wind up just like shuffling through the store the rest of the way. I bought nothing extra. I was like, we are getting what's on this list and we are getting out of here. So
Do I go to the restroom? Do I try to figure this out? Do I just leave? Do I want my groceries? What am I doing here?
all those questions ran through my mind in a matter of just seconds. And so, yes. So we would like to know what made you laugh, rage, cry this week. Please drop a comment. We have opened ourselves up to you, and hopefully made you laugh or made you go, oh, dang, that's happened to me before. We're going to talk about estrangement. All right. So what does estrangement really mean, in terms of what we're experiencing, especially in our lives? There's this complexity to it. It's not always about anger, like I hate you and I never want to see you again type of a thing. That's not what it's always about. So sometimes it's about boundaries that need to be set in the familiar setting. It's about, healing that needs to take place. And like I said, this stuff is rarely discussed because sometimes it's very taboo and it's seen as like, a little bit judgmental, or you don't want to be, have the judgment put on you. Like I said earlier, what's wrong with you that you can't like figure stuff out in your family?
Mm-hmm.
And we also see that this is on a rise because of people taking better care of their mental health and setting better boundaries for themselves. Um, personal boundaries, and trying to prevent maybe some like generational trauma from continuing. This is also, one of those things that kind of has people just go, you know what, I can't. So we're gonna, talk about a little bit of like setting these boundaries and what can cause it, and then we're gonna get to like some solutions.
The things with family estrangement is that, like Cynthia said, it is about personal boundaries and definitions and what constitutes harmful behavior, because everybody's parameters about what is harmful is different. And changes in the family structures. The other thing is younger generations are way less willing to tolerate stress or abuse that leads them to prioritize their well-being. And they set firm boundaries with their parents. And this is further fueled by blended families, which can destabilize relationships, situations that maybe happened that you as a parent or may have been unaware of.
Mm.
I think the other thing that sometimes could play into this is maybe as a child, you're not aware of what your parents went through,
Spot on. Yeah.
and unfortunately, like I have the capacity to look at my dad. My mom's passed away many years ago, and I can look at my dad and think, gosh, what was it like to be him? He was born in the 40s. His parents were, the World War II generation, I believe that is correct. And so
no, he would be World War II.
okay,
His
so then
parents would be Depression era.
okay, Depression era. So, I can remember going to my grandparents' house, and if my grandmother had like 1 bar of soap, she had 14, because it was that mentality of not having enough, or what if we don't have it? So, so it's just learning those kinds of things. And then, when you're an adult and you see, my grandparents, my grandfather actually happened to see some of his great grandchildren be born. And to look at the way my grandfather was with the great grandkids versus the way he was with the grandkids versus that was very different in a good way. in a good way. And I think sometimes we have to remember that we can evolve, even if the older generations aren't necessarily doing the quote unquote healing work, they can evolve.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
again, setting those boundaries
yeah.
for you that's workable for you.
Mhm. I agree. You know, Denise had a very good point there about the younger generation now having firm boundaries and recognizing where they're just going to be like, no. So let's take, for example, if you are a parent currently of like an adult child who is just like, no, I'm not coming to Thanksgiving, or I'm not coming to, whatever gathering. Um, it's important to recognize that they are setting a boundary.
Mhm.
Maybe there is a conversation that needs to be had and understanding why. And it's not just because they're pitching a fit about it. Maybe they are, but most likely they're not. They're setting a boundary for a reason. And so
Mhm.
if this is something that you are, wanting to actively work on, then this is something that it's helpful if you have conversations around it. Be understanding and be receptive to hearing what it is that they have to say. It could be that they want to come, but they're like, hey, let's keep the political talk to a minimum. Let's keep
Right.
the religious stuff off the
Mhm.
table entirely. Or, and if that's something that you cannot do, then you also have, you know,
Mhm.
respectfully can say, all right, I see your viewpoint. However, this is my home and this is, this is Christmas. It's about religion or what have you. But conversations can be had. It doesn't need to be this, I never want to speak to you again. I never want to see your ugly face again, whatever. Because let's face it, like things can get really nasty
Mhm.
when there is estrangement. And the more time that lapses, the uglier it gets.
Mhm.
You've got you've got both parties feeling this like guilt, grief, trauma,
Mhm.
and then not communicating about it. So that doesn't make things good. And then you've also got some people who come from, and this is usually like the older generation of where blood above everything, right? Your family is family first and
Right.
everything else is secondary. But if if they are feeling that they are not part of the family, or if there's something there that, well, I'm sorry, but this blood is not thicker than water in this instance, it's very easy for them to just go, I can't and I
Mhm.
won't, you know.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And it's really starting to like open up conversation. And as a parent of all real adult children, because my children all have their own children, being open to the uncomfortable conversation. As the parent, I might not like what they have to say or what they need to share. However, I need to be open-minded enough to listen to what they have to say and not listening so that I can respond back and go, this is why you're wrong. It is about listening because it is how they feel,
Yeah.
how they felt in the situation or whatever the case might be. And one of the things that I say a lot, it's one of those things that it's like I can't explain, share, or understand anything if you don't even have a conversation with me, right? Like
Mhm.
I can't I can't talk about it if we're just going to go, okay, line in the sand and no. Now, I know there's probably times where perhaps maybe you have had tried to have conversations and they to no avail. And
Yeah.
that is where you set your boundaries that work for you. Like to your point, Cynthia, like if there's going to be political talk or religious talk that you're not comfortable with, you're just like, okay, I will, stay until that starts happening. And in which case, now I'm going to remove myself either from the room
Hmm.
or altogether and just go home
Hmm.
if that's what you're more comfortable with. Because we all have to start to really set those boundaries. And I think for so many years, you get raised in well, you just make sure everybody else is okay, and then we'll worry about yourself later. And that's not how this is supposed to go. And in midlife, it just gets even more challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Look, not everybody's going to see eye to eye. This is just a fact. Whether it's your family or it's a coworker or your best friend,
Mhm.
you're not going to see eye to eye
No,
100% of the time.
no.
And whether it is, your parent, your sibling, like we are all trying to do our best and uphold, these boundaries and not, let's say as a parent, I don't want to push my child away, but at the same time, I want my child to be able to say, like, I don't really, agree with this. I don't want to get in a fight with you over it, but like, maybe can we change the subject, the topic?
We say this all the time on our show. Boundaries are not to push people away. They are for you so that you can keep you and possibly even your family safe.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. And, also keeping in mind each child has a different relationship with the parents.
Mhm.
But you have to remember each child's born into a different family structure because
Right.
you have your first, your middle, your last, or your only, or whatever. And each phase that you go through as an adult, your
Yes.
children are going to go through a different version of you.
Right. The dynamic changes with like each iteration, and are you evolving with that dynamic that's changing, or are you kind of like holding like hard?
Really keeping those dynamics in mind that, because I know even for me, I have a completely different relationship with my father that my sister and my brother have. Mine isn't as good.
Yeah.
And that's okay. The one great thing though is I've never doubted my father's love for me. I just, we're like oil and water. We just don't always mix very well sometimes. But I've never doubted his love. And that's where we have to remember that our parents do love us.
Absolutely. Even, I can give an example of when I was young, and I'm talking like 18, 19, 20. I was the child who was just like, you guys don't agree with me. I'm out of here until you can, like my decisions and support me. And I was like steadfast on that. And being that young, also, I'm just gonna say it, dumb.
Well, but we thought we were all that
So smart.
so smart.
So smart. But the reality was that my parents, it wasn't that they didn't love me enough to agree with me or follow, whatever it was that I was just like, up in a tizzy about. It was simply that they loved me so much that they wanted better for me, but I didn't see it that way. I just
Mhm.
saw it as like, you're being controlling and you don't support my dream and my wishes. And you can fast forward just a few years after that had like fallen apart, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I made a huge mistake. Like I could have handled this way better. Like I could have like just said, it makes me sad that you don't support this. And then of course, then my parents could have also said, it's not that we don't support you, it's just that we don't support this decision. But I was taking it that you don't support this decision, so you don't love me. I'm all for setting the boundaries. I'm not saying don't set the boundaries, but I think that when the boundaries are set, a conversation has to be had and not just this.
Right. And not coming from a place of anger when you set them.
Yes,
Right? Because if we're angry when we're setting these boundaries, then every time we want to stick to that boundary, it just brings that anger back up. And the boundary isn't about being angry. It is about
or being right.
correct. This is for my peace. And what does that look like?
Yeah.
And, you know, kind of getting into the boundary thing, right? Decide in advance, what you are and are not comfortable with, right? Think about that before you get where you're going.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, if you are at a family function and everybody's playing drinking games and you're not okay with that, then you get to go, okay, I'm here for this, but when that starts, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Right. And
I-
and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, I'm not judging that, but if it's something for you, and you need to communicate calmly with your family when conflict arises, because so many times as we get triggered, and we're like, and we can't do it that way. Like I know, my dad said something the other day and he started in the middle of a conversation and I was like, what are you talking about? And he got a little attitude with me. And so then I, of course, got a bigger attitude and and I was like, well, don't treat me like I'm an idiot, da 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 da, or whatever I said. And,
Mhm.
and my dad which this would have never happened years ago, but graciously on a couple days later, he said, I didn't mean to offend you. He's
Oh,
like, this just happens when I get tired. And I said, I apologize too. I shouldn't have been so snarky. I should have been more patient and let you finish. Right.
oh.
And that is huge progress. But
It-
again,
That's
it's
huge progress, whether you have a great dynamic or not a good dynamic.
exactly. And so it's that where you have that conversation.
Yes.
I've just had, a lot of, family stress in my own family. And so I think it just escalated and that's on me.
Mhm.
That wasn't on him. And so I needed to take responsibility for that, right? And it's where you need to learn to protect your own emotional health and reduce your own anxiety.
Yeah. 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 Set those boundaries with yourself. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, reducing your anxiety. Look, we're going into the holidays. So let's say, for example, you are estranged from your family, or you have, a very close family member who is estranged. So let's look at some things that we can do to help that in this situation.
Mhm.
With the holidays, how about redefining the holiday traditions? Let's say so and so used to be in charge of a certain dish, and now they're not coming to the family event. So you can either go ahead and take care of the dish yourself, or maybe you just go without that dish, or mix it up and introduce something entirely different to the table. you know,
Right.
um,
Exactly.
creating new rituals that feel authentic. Now, this can be either with your family or this can be by yourself. You can
Mhm.
create these new rituals on your own. Let's say, it was something about decorating the tree. Well, now you're no longer with your family doing like the decorating on Thanksgiving. So then you just go and you get one of those cute little trees from the grocery store or Home Depot and you make it adorable on your own. And you make a new ritual and a new something like cozy and homey for yourself. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be something that winds up being this like emotional trigger for you. Turn it into something that's pleasant and something that you enjoy and look forward to. And because you don't know it, maybe it's something that you're like, you know what? Down the road when things have been smoothed over or not, this is just something now that I have incorporated and it brings me peace and happiness. This also, doing that helps you replace the grief around
Mhm.
that scene. And it helps you replace it with something that's joyful, or so that you can look back on and go, you know what, I actually enjoyed that. I had a nice little, did my little tree decorations with my cutie little, decor that I had, and I had cocoa and I put on the music that I liked. And
Right. So where do you need to get your support?
yes.
Through therapy, support groups,
Mhm.
prioritizing your self-care with activities that you enjoy, like meditation, going for a walk, really tapping into what internally is going to support you during.
So one of the things that a lot of people wonder when they're going through this time is like, is reconciliation possible? Depending on which end of the spectrum you're on it, you might be at one point like, I can't wait until we make nice and things are like they used to be. Or you might be on the other end of it where you're just like, I never ever want to speak, hear them, talk to them, see their face, any about maybe there needs to be some closure without contact. you know
Mhm.
what does it a healthy reconciliation look like? It's not all about forgive and forget. We don't know what has transpired. Us personally, we don't know what's transpired in those viewers out there, that maybe it's something absolutely just heart-wrenching and terrible. And that's not to say that you're supposed to forgive and forget, but we truly hope that you will find the support and the peace that you need during this time to help you move forward. Forgiveness isn't about like receiving an apology, because some people might not even still be alive to give an apology. Some people might not recognize that they play a role in something where an apology is needed.
Mhm.
um it doesn't excuse what happened. It doesn't just be like, okay, well, remove all accountability. That's not what I'm saying. It's just
Mhm.
forgiveness is about freeing yourself. Okay. It's about freeing yourself of this emotional burden and this heaviness and this pain that you
Mhm.
carry from whatever the situation is that has transpired.
Right.
Okay. And that might be like, I forgive so and so, but I cannot be with you right now. I choose not to
Mhm.
be. Um, you know, um, Forgiveness also is very helpful because it's going to work on your own physical health as well. If you were holding on to this pain and this, ah,
Suffering.
yeah, suffering and all, and the anger too that goes along with it,
Yeah.
you're not doing yourself any service. Okay, so
No, I think kind of to that point, what you were making is that I think a lot of times what people don't realize is that, when they internalize that, your body eventually does have a physical reaction to what you've been holding on to.
I have a book on my desk. Your body keeps the score.
Oh, yes. The
Yes.
other one that I've read that's also a very good resource is Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life.
Hmm.
And that's also a good reference to, especially if you have gone for medical care and they're just like, I don't know. So if you're navigating, family estrangement during the holidays, the key is to focus on your boundaries for you, your self-care,
Yes.
building alternative sources of connection. Um, Also maybe just maybe take a look at it from a different lens of the
Yeah.
perspective of the other person.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to have a conversation tomorrow, but it might just open up a different possibility for you to see where this person might have been coming from, whether it's a friend, a family member, a coworker, like you said, or anything like that. And so it's just really kind of looking at that, and then the experts really emphasize that healing doesn't mean forcing a reconciliation either. If that is just something that's not, there are times where things have occurred and there is just like there is a hard no, I'm not, you know, and like Cynthia said, looking at that forgiveness, it is for you. I know that sounds like such a cliche, but it really is because
Mhm.
when you hold on to that, you're allowing that person to take free rent in your brain,
Yep. Continuing to
and
persecute you.
sometimes the other person might have their feelings hurt too, but a lot of times they haven't given you a thought. And meanwhile, they're running rampant in the cul-de-sac in your mind, right? So create that space of peace for yourself and meaning for your life for you.
Indeed. Yep. I completely concur. Let us know in the comments what you think. Are you going through an estrangement right now? Have you been through it before? What encouragement and what solutions would you give to someone out there currently experiencing that? Thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Now, remember, like, subscribe, and share this with anybody that you think might benefit from understanding a little bit more about family estrangement.
Indeed.
Take care.